Last year, you made a powerful statement saying the reason people are watching women's basketball is not just because of one player, but because of you too. A year later, do you feel like you're getting...
Next question.
The reporter didn't have to angel, but he never got to complete his question. In just 2 words, Ree described the current state of the WNBA and its relationship with Caitlin Clark. Let me explain. Millions of new fans, sold-out arenas, and record-breaking viewership are all evidence of the WNBA's undeniable impact, but so is the league's collective mishandling of their golden opportunity. Rather than embracing the Caitlin Clark effect, many in the league pushed back, questioned the hype, downplayed her impact, and, worst of all, made fun of her fans. To anyone outside the league, the Caitlin Clark effect made no sense.
But the WNBA last year, bless their hearts, finally got a star. And they didn't know that. They couldn't figure it out. Well, we don't want to put too much Caitlin Clark on. Nope, every game. More Caitlin Clark all the time, always. Caitlin Clark is easily the most influential athlete in a team sport since Michael Jordan.
The accomplishment, the popular breakthrough, the headlines for many WNBA players. Caitlin Clark was leading the way. For them, this wasn't a celebration. Rather, it was a funeral because, after years of being told that fans didn't care about the women's game, the idea that they would be the ones to elevate the league collectively was the death of a dream. The excitement, the packed arenas, the moment the player was in the spotlight, the cultural breakthrough, they were on the verge of real money, respectable salaries, and international attention. But the catch was that Caitlin Clark was leading the way.
There's levels to this thing, and that's just life. We all went through it.
Yes, Diana, there have been players and the media going through what seem like stages of grief, denial, anger, and the works. Just wait until you see how everything comes together. It's crazy. In any case, the WNBA has had a terrible reputation, and it has been sad and ugly. But now there's been a shift. A moment that would normally be unremarkable ended up changing everything, and now the WNBA is fully aware of what's coming next, and they are rushing to get on the right side of history. Let's talk about what happened, but first, watch this video if you're ready to see the WNBA cave to Caitlin. Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person, it's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
Every Fever game became a must-see event, with fans waiting for hours and scalpers charging playoff prices for regular season tickets. By this point last season, Caitlin Clark was already living rent-free in the minds of half the WNBA. She hadn't even arrived yet. She had tripled viewership and sold out NBA arenas.
Now, if we say her stats are today, what?
20 points, 8.4 assists, 6 rebounds.
That's crazy.
But 5 points.
Before Caitlin Clark ever put on a pair of professional sneakers, the excitement surrounding her was generational. She had just broken the NCAA scoring record for both men's and women's, and she had led Iowa to consecutive national championship games that sold out every arena. She touched and dropped logo threes like layups, and when the WNBA draft rolled around, there was no suspense or surprises, just a coronation. She was the clear #1 pick, but more than that, she was the moment the CA Plum, Wilson, Kelsey, the old guard players, media, and even executives immediately jumped in to downplay the moment. You could see the cracks before she ever hit the court. Breanna Stewart was a legitimate star and an MVP, but none of them came in with this kind of hype. And for some, that stung triggered the first stage of grief denial. It wasn't just skepticism, it was outright resistance.
Caitlin's coming. There's more than just that are coming. What will the league have in store for them when they get there?
Look, SVP, reality is coming.
The WNBA is a different beast. You don't just waltz in and dominate the women who built this league. The hype would have subsided, the media attention would have shifted, and the old guard would have been vindicated if Caitlin had just come in and flopped even just a little bit. However, that's not what happened. Every time she played, the ratings soared, national broadcasts showed sellout crowds, jerseys flew off the shelves, and she wasn't just meeting expectations. That's when we saw it in Stage 2 anger.
The voting last season. Clark, hammer. 3 Sky players coming over. Here's Clark. For 29 points, gets tripped up.
Is good. Kennedy Carter now with 12 points off the bench.
Now that it was obvious that Caitlyn's pull would not end despite several jeers and criticisms from the media, the league, whether intentionally or unintentionally, began to push back between the lines as players took liberties. The next stage was damage management, hard screens, off-ball hits, unnecessary contact. And what did the refs do? Pocketed their whistles. It became a pattern. Let her get hit, let her get frustrated, let her second guess if she belonged, if the hype wouldn't die naturally. They tried to snuff it out physically, and you could see it game after game it wore on her. She was exhausted, bruised, and mentally drained, but Caitlyn rose above. She didn't cry, she didn't fold, she got stronger literally, and came back after. The Olympic break, playing the best basketball of her life. We're talking MVP-level stuff, leading the Fever to wins, breaking the assist record, making first-team All-Star, all of it. And once she proved the hype was real, we entered stage 3 bargaining. This is the stage where people try to make sense of the new reality. They negotiate with themselves, with others, try to explain it all in a way that lets them hold on to what they lost: status, pride, control, because, let's be real, what many players lost was their ego. Caitlyn came and took the league by storm, and suddenly the spotlight wasn't on the veterans anymore, it was on her. So, what did they do? They changed the story.
It's just the structure of the way media plays out race. So last night we read Time magazine where Caitlin Clark was named Athlete of the Year. Why couldn't they have put the whole WNBA on that cover?
The one thing that I cannot deny is the amount of little girls that were showing up to follow her. Little girls with their parents and the fervor and the energy there.
Why her?
Same thing.
Why her?
Well, but she was a white girl from the middle of America.
They targeted everything around Caitlyn, attacking the supporters and blaming the media because they knew that going after her directly would fail. Even though Caitlyn Clark led the league in assists as a rookie, attracted record-breaking crowds, and attracted more attention to the game than ever before, none of that mattered because the story being told wasn't about her greatness, but rather about bias. Caitlyn wasn't the problem. Everyone else was. She was receiving preferential treatment, and her fans weren't true WNBA fans.
While Caitlyn is fantastic and I think she's going to have an incredible career in the WNBA, there are women that were worthy of coverage prior to her arriving, and I just will not be silenced when it comes to that.
This is the traditional propaganda playbook. A portion of the basketball community now genuinely believes that Caitlyn Clark is untalented and simply lucky. But if they were hoping for the Caitlyn Clark effect to fade away as a result of this narrative, they were mistaken. Repeat the lie loud enough, and eventually people stopped questioning it. Veterans began coming up to join the Indiana Fever one by one. These were season champs, not players looking for work or simply content to be on the roster. Dana Bonner Howard, Natasha Coulson, Sydney women with choices. There was a period not long ago when media voices like Cheryl Swoops portrayed Indiana as a place no one wanted to visit. Terasai even brought up the old rumors recently, but that narrative collapsed because Indy isn't just a destination. It's the destination, and with that, the floodgates opened. Women wearing rings, and they all wanted to play there, not just because of the roster, not just because of the coach, but also because of Caitlyn Clark.
And for the first time in history, WNBA games will be played in the United Center. The Chicago Sky will host the Indiana Fever at the UC on Saturday, June 7th, and on Sunday, July 27th.
The first was the arena upgrades. Games that were normally played in smaller gyms were suddenly being booked for Caitlyn Clark, not for league parity, not for playoff implications, and not for all stars. Then came the broadcast schedule. Of the Indiana Fever's 44 regular season games, 41 will be nationally televised. That's not just visibility, that's saturation. The networks weren't hedging their bets. They were placing all of their chips on one player, betting that the Caitlyn Clark show was worth prime time billing nearly every night. One of the exhibition games sold out a 15,000-seat arena, meaning there were no standings or playoff stakes, just Caitlyn, and fans paid hundreds of dollars to watch her warm up.
And the average reported ticket price was $650. Now, if you do the math here and you do 15,000 people times $650, that is almost $9.75 million just for a WNBA preseason game.
It was then impossible to ignore the Caitlyn Clark effect. For many players, it was next-level math, money, and momentum, not hype or marketing fluff. The players began talking after reality struck in a different way. Their own teams weren't focusing on them. Instead, they were counting on Caitlyn's promotions, which were linked to the Fever's visit, and ticket sales jumped only when she was in town. The broadcasters, sponsors, and fans all knew it. Somewhere in the middle of the sold-out arenas, the marketing blitz, and the change in league energy, something began to settle in acceptance.
Yes, have we ever had teams have to get into larger arenas to play against a team? No, we have not. So if we have more eyeballs on the game and Caitlin Clark brings that, why would we feel some kind of way because she has more television games? I think we have to understand that when one player eats, we all eat. And as we all get more opportunities, it just opens it up for everyone else.
Caitlin Clark a problem, bro.
Yeah, she that.
I just think about my rookie year, and I think about how I came into the league, and I'm like, bro, it was such a crazy transition for me to just understand what it's like to play at the pro level. And it's like this girl coming in as a rookie and going she broke the record for assists. I don't think people really understand how crazy that is to do as a rookie, your first year doing this. But that's another episode. Shout out to Caitlin, bro.
The plays that she was making still, despite all that, was insane. But people were so caught up in the logo threes and the highs, the 20 3-point attempts per game, which absolutely I understand that. It was so much fun to watch. But I always said she could potentially be one of the best point guards to ever play in the WNBA.
The tone has gradually changed. The same media outlets that once questioned her every move are now running features on her leadership, work ethic, and impact. The same players who once seemed skeptical are starting to give real credit. Of course, there are still snubs, double standards, and plenty of voices more eager to criticize than to celebrate. She's not only good, but she's also altering the rules, which leads us to the decisive time. Caitlin Clark's return home.